Hi, I'm Pastor Horton. Welcome to this week's message, where I have the pleasure of talking with Miss Cathy Clover Garland. Welcome in.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. So we talked before, and I got to hear your testimony, but I would love if you don't mind telling it again for everybody to hear.
Sure. I think the most of the time people want to know that I grew up in a family in the church, a pastor's daughter. We deeply love the church, the Bible. We call ourselves revival watchers. And love God, love people was really what we did all the time. And both my parents were saved or really impacted in their walk with God during the Jesus movement. So I grew up with a group of hippies saved in the Jesus movement, sharing everything, sharing their lives, sharing their food. Then very few people had money. It was such an environment or a community of believers. And then I began to see the business world move into the church, and abuses began to happen. And I began to deconstruct my version of Christianity, the one that I had grown up and saw around me, really being unraveled. And on my 13th year, I told my parents, I'm not sure this is for me. And then my father, THD, took me to the library, helped me check out books, and we studied all the major religions and quite a few of the smaller ones. And then by the end of the 14th year, I had become convinced. I mean, we went to conferences, I asked tons of questions. I was constantly asking people, probing, asking tough things, I think. And then finally, at the end of the 13th year, when I was about ready to turn 14, I said, okay, Jesus Christ revealed in the Bible, I think he's real. Not only do I think he's real, I know he's real. Not only do I know he's real, I know he wants a relationship with me. And so from there, I began to rebuild a faith. And some things did not make it into the pot. There were traditions made of men. I remember there was a fad that went through the church of wearing skirts. I think it came from the Bill Gothard like cult thing that happened. And so everybody wanted to wear skirts and force women into wearing skirts. And I told my dad, I said, first of all, I don't see that in the Bible. And second of all, I don't like them. And so my dad said, it's not in the Bible. And so I didn't have to do it. And he was showing me that the supremacy of the Bible is the most important thing. And that helped me reconstruct a faith that withstood all the things that came next. So that would be where I'd start.
Yeah, that's incredible. Um, my own testimony that I've gone over, it's kind of similar where I walked away from the church
Hmm.
for a while, much longer than just looking through things, but I lost my way. Um, and it took me years to find my way back.
Yeah.
And only when I understood, like, the church teaches so many things, and I never really understood what they were talking about. My whole ministry is based around helping people understand at least the basics
Sure.
of Christianity. And once I did that, I realized there's so much more to this. There's so
Right.
much to learn. It's never ending.
Yeah.
And I asked a mentor of mine once, as I write these sermons, what happens when I run out of material? He laughed. And I was like, why are you laughing at me? And he says, Alex, you're never going to run out of material. You can go through the Bible every single day with a new sermon, and by the time you die, you still won't have gotten to everything.
That's true.
And I was dumbstruck, but it's true. There's
It
so
is
much
true.
to learn.
You're right. And when you said that, it was reminding me, I don't know if you know this or not, but R.C. Sproul used to say, I think that's how you say his name, it's kind of an odd name. R.C. Sproul used to say that he would ask his seminarians if they could give him a concise version of the gospel. And he was lucky if 10% could. which is devastating to me because, like you're saying, the basic, right? The basic is the gospel. And if seminarians are learning all the things, but can't tell you what the basic gospel is, and I'm not talking about a Sunday school, Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead. Like you have to be able to say a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
But, the gospel as in, the kingdom has come upon you. Like, can you say that? And so I like you, I asked myself, what is this basic gospel? And I must have watched 100+ videos on YouTube of people sharing the gospel. But they weren't. They were sharing their testimony, which I love. I love people's testimony, but it's still not the gospel.
No.
And so I had to really hone, we're going on a completely different idea, but I had to hone a concise gospel that I could say to a mom on a park bench or before our kids like get a bloody nose or something, or a bank teller when nobody else is in there because nobody does banking transactions anymore, but before somebody comes in, like in that short period of time, or maybe on a street corner in the middle of the Middle East, before a lynch mob comes and gets me, can I say what must be said in a short, concise way? And I have worked and worked and worked at that because I want to be able to say the most basic thing, the gospel.
Yeah. And it's not easy.
No.
I'm not even sure that I could do it off the top of my head right now. But when you think about it, when you
Yep.
boil it down, I mean, the first 7 sermons I gave um, were all about the fundamentals of faith.
Right.
And it talks about love, grace, faith, um, forgiveness, and repentance. It talks
Yep.
about all these different things.
Yep.
And I think if somebody asked me, what is the gospel? I would say it is the testimony or a story of how God sent
Mm.
himself in the flesh
Yep.
to show us these things.
Yep.
I think that's the quickest, easiest way I could say it. But I think if I had to focus on one of those, it would be love.
Right. And I start the concise gospel that I memorized with motivated by love because
Yeah.
I think that's the key to it all. Motivated by love, Jesus Christ still seeks the suffering, the sick, the rejected. He frees us, restores us, heals us, adopts us, and proves we are His by extending Himself, just like you just said. His holiness in an exchange that makes us whole. That's the first part of the gospel from my perspective.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to get caught up in, the fights or the
Sure.
disciples or the parables.
Right.
The absolute most important thing that Jesus ever said, at least the way that I see it, is the 2 commandments that he gave.
Right.
Love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself.
Love God, love people.
Yep, that's it. And both of them are love. It's not, hey, you have to do this thing, or hey,
Yeah.
you can't do this thing.
Right.
The 2 absolute laws that he sets forward is love God, love each other.
That's right.
So, really, I mean, you want to boil the gospel down to its absolute basics, love.
Love. Yeah, and love demonstrated or love
Yeah.
actually doing something, not just patting you on the back or even handing you tissues or even crying with you, but he did do all those things. I mean, he
Mhm.
did weep with those who wept, so I agree with you doing something, and I feel like those two laws came from the first law, which is be holy, for
Mhm.
I am holy, and it has almost the parentheses, so I can dwell with you. And there were two things that we needed to do in order to be holy. It's to love God and to love people. If you do that, you'll be holy. It's not going to be an immediate process, but it's going to happen. And I always love that the first fruit of the Spirit is love.
Hmm.
It's a supernatural thing. I think I deal with people all the time who come for healing prayer or something like that, and they have wounds. And of course, they need to be led through forgiveness. And forgiveness is tough. And I say, oh, no, no, no. Forgiveness isn't tough. Forgiveness is supernatural. You can't possibly extend forgiveness on your own human self. It's not possible.
No,
It's a supernatural thing. And the Holy Spirit brings what you need in that moment of loving that person in their horribleness and what they did to you. And I tell them, it doesn't mean you invite them for dinner. I mean,
no,
you're going to be glad that you see them at the Lamb's Supper someday.
yeah,
But that doesn't mean they have to come supper with you.
no.
There's
That's
a boundary.
that's one of those things I talk about also is I have forgiven people who have done terrible things against me. I
Right.
have not reconciled with them. I never will.
Yep.
The difference is forgiveness. That's just letting go of all of the negativity that you feel towards them.
Yep.
Reconciliation is saying, "All right, now that we're good again, let's hang out again."
Right.
I don't want that. I don't
Yeah.
ever want to see that person again.
Right.
But if they get hit by a bus, I'm
Right.
still going to weep because they
Sure.
were an individual who was created by God, loved by me. And that's the other thing. Like, unless you can say that you love somebody, even after they've hurt you, you haven't really forgiven them. And
Right.
I'm not, I, I'm
It's a
writing,
process.
yeah, I'm writing another book, and this one's
Okay.
about love. But
Okay.
love in English sucks. I hate the word. Absolutely hate it. Because I can go over and I can say, man, I love pizza.
Right.
And then I can come home to a partner and say, I love you. It's the same word. That is not the same meaning.
No.
So like if somebody wrongs me and I forgive them and then I say, "Hey, I still love you." I'm not saying I am romantically interested in them. I'm not saying that I would, you know, invite them back into my life or help them in a time of need. I'm saying I value your humanity. That's
Yes.
as
Image of
far as
God.
this will ever go.
Yeah. The image of God that they do have. They recognize the image of God that they do bear. I agree with you. And for me, it's like I know that I have forgiven someone when when I see them at the Lamb's Supper one day, someday in the future. I will
Yeah.
be glad that they are there,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to invite them for supper over at my house.
No, absolutely not. And that's something I struggled with for a long time was I didn't want to forgive people because I thought that meant I had to reach out and I had
Sure.
to rebuild that relationship.
Right.
And so now, whenever people are like, man, I don't want to forgive them, I say, do you not want to forgive them or do you not want them back in your life?
Right.
And so they'll say, well, I don't want them back in my life. You don't have to have them back in your life. And it's like their mind is blown.
Right.
I
I agree
mean,
with you.
it's crazy to see that they're like, I never thought of that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's fun sometimes. It's really, really fun to minister to people because I mean, even in my own friend group, I have a group of myself and two other friends, and we joke because one of them, she's really emotional. The other is, kind of emotional, kind of logical. I have always struggled with emotion, so I'm seen as the really logical one. And
Hmm.
so we'll have these conversations and they'll be talking and I'll just be listening and I offer them advice. They're like, I had never thought of that. I'd never thought of it that way. And I'm like, yeah, it's just, I mean, it's logical to think that way. And they always tease me. They're like, someday you're gonna have a problem and we're gonna help you. I'm like, by all means, please. But like ministering to people, helping them see things from a different
Sure.
light, that is
Wisdom. Mm.
the best thing I've ever experienced.
I agree with you. And when sometimes you say that thing that helps them or puts them on a different journey, turns them off whatever path they were on and onto a new path, is it's the most valuable thing we do, I feel like. And I'm not studying to be a pastor or a pastor technically, but I do a lot of discipleship and I do a lot of ministry in the healing areas. And going back to, what you just said with the unforgiveness, I said to someone just recently, and it was the same kind of thing, concept. I said, well, if you can't forgive in this area yet, it's still too raw, it's too new, and quite frankly it's still happening, because of what their situation. I said, well, of course you can't forgive yet. That's all right. I said, don't forgive right now. You say, this is what I say when I can't forgive. Lord, I can't forgive this person at the moment, but I surrender this person and this situation to you. And that puts the ball back in his court. Now it's his job to help me where I need it, which could mean expelling this person out of the vicinity of my life potentially. There was someone who had really very much hurt me in the church growing up, a pastor, and hurt my family. And it was still happening. And I could not forgive this person, even though I was no longer in the church. Other people were. And so it was continual. It was like a new pain pretty much every week. And so I was like, Lord, I cannot forgive this person. It's still happening. It's like an onion. You can't keep up with the layers. And so I prayed, Lord, I need your help, but I surrender this area to you. And do you know, he moved that pastor to Africa. Stopped happening. And I was able to heal and forgive because of the distance. And now when I think of him, I don't have the angst that I have. And I might even love him to the point that if I had to sacrifice my life for him, I might even consider doing that. I don't know if I had the moment, but I'm definitely going to be happy to see him at the Lamb's Supper. And I might even be happy before then. But boy, if that distance hadn't happened, it would have happened. Never.
No. And it's like if I walked into a hospital with a knife sticking out of my stomach,
Yeah.
no healing could happen
No,
until they remove that knife.
it's just logical.
Yeah. And like, here's a really, really good way, at least in my brain, that I just came up with to describe certain kinds of forgiveness.
Okay.
Sometimes you get stabbed and the knife is still there. You need to remove it. You
Hello.
need that thing that's hurting you to go away before you can get healed.
Yeah.
Other times, it's like somebody shoots you, right?
Yeah.
Clean in and out. There
Yep.
is nothing there anymore. And
Right.
so you can just get it fixed.
Right.
Both of them take time, both of them hurt.
Yeah.
It just depends on, you know, with your situation. The problem was still there.
It
You
was.
couldn't heal until it was removed.
Yeah.
With some of mine, the problem had already been removed,
Yeah.
or it was just a very short instance of, ah, I can I can manage to forgive you.
Right.
But other times, I mean, if we're going with that analogy, sometimes it's the bullet gets lodged in there,
Yeah. You got to dig it
and
out.
you have to dig through all of these different things that you're going through to
Yeah.
find the root cause of this pain.
Yeah. And that is where, for me, when that kind of thing happens, when it's lodged in there, I might not even know it's still there, or fragments, if you will, or even
Yeah,
left to take it a little further. Um, that's when I have to know God. That's when I have to trust. So the way I look at it is you can't trust what you don't already love. And you can't love someone if you don't know them. So it all starts in knowing. And so for me, I'm constantly dealing with by listening to people's stories and their pain and what the wound is where they're presenting. I'm asking God, all right, Lord, what is in your nature and your character, your attributes that is the antidote to this situation. It's not that I want to solve it. I can't solve it. Because you don't
No.
want to just jump in counseling and things like that. You don't want to just jump into solving it. However, if I can point them to the God who does have the healing antidote, that's my job. So I'll say, for example, a woman came to me, and this happens regularly, actually. I have this conversation with women constantly. They'll say, I'm really dealing with anxiety, almost crippling anxiety. I'm wondering, do I need to get on some meds or something like that? I'm like, listen, get on meds if you need to. That's fine. But let's talk about why you're feeling the anxiety. And a lot of it is this sort of low level anxiety that comes from not knowing the future and not being able to control the future, which seems silly and illogical, but it's where a lot of women, particularly in their minds, are anxious and afraid, especially if they have children. So you don't have kids yet, but one of the things that happens to you when you have kids is you lie awake wondering if you're turning your children into serial killers or narcissists. Are you ruining them? Or are you enough of a mom? Did you hug them enough? Did you do enough? Did you feed them enough? Is it healthy enough? There's a lot of enoughs there, okay? There's a lot of concerns that you're doing it right. And so she was expressing that I don't know what the future holds for these kinds of things. And I said, okay, so first of all, let's talk about the God who is omnipresent. For a moment, go with me to the beginning of the foundations of the earth when they're being laid by Christ Himself. He's still there laying the foundations of the earth. He's omnipresent. He never leaves a moment. We, in theology, you know this because you're going to seminary, we say he exists in an eternal now. That's all he has is a now. He doesn't have a past, a present, and a future. He only has a present. It's always now to him. And so he's still there laying the foundations of the earth. He's still knitting me together in my mother's womb. He's still knitting her children in her womb. He never left those moments.
No.
And he's all the way in the future, victorious, and she's there with him. That is all happening all at the same time for God. And that's why he can say to someone like Gideon, mighty man of valor, and Gideon's like, I don't think so. I'm hiding, fleshing out some wheat here, and I don't know what you're talking about. But God didn't lie to him. No, God knows in the future, it's Gideon's future, but it's God's present, that Gideon is a mighty man of valor. And so when he says it, it's true then, just as it's true always for God. And so when I started telling her that, she was listening and she was thinking about it. And so she began to think about it. She came back to me several weeks ago, this one woman that just recently did it again. And she said, okay, I just sunk my teeth into this, and now I don't have anxiety about the future. It took it away. It was the antidote to the low level anxiety that she was experiencing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's funny that you should say this. I said this to somebody a little while back where I almost verbatim said what you said. And I
Wow.
gave an example. Because I understand there are a lot of people who might not necessarily be able to visualize that. It's
Sure.
kind of hard to wrap your brain around
It
something
is.
that's outside of time.
Right.
But if you grab like a pen or a pencil, right?
Yeah.
You've got it. This is a timeline. You're holding it horizontal.
Yep.
We live across this line,
We do.
whereas God takes this, turns it, and looks right along that little point.
Yeah.
He's still seeing all of time, but he's not existing on the line.
Right.
He is the line. I
He
mean,
is the line. That's the key. Yeah, you're right, because sometimes people say he exists outside of time. That's not correct. He fills all of time, all at the same time, for all time.
yes.
Right.
Um, I hate to cut this short because we're having such a great conversation, but um, you have a book. You have two books, I believe you said. You have one coming out soon and one that's already come out. Would you
Yes.
like to tell us about that?
Yeah. If people are listening and they're thinking about that, just even that revelation we just talked about, it is kind of a mind-bending revelation,
Oh
but
yeah.
it is practical. highly practical because when we know God, He comes into our story and He meets us wherever we are. And that revelation of Himself meets whatever lack or need we have. And that's the way He designed it. He doesn't say, oh, there's Kathy asking for something else new. He designed it so that I would come to Him with the lack, with the need to be filled by Him and to live in an existence where He's constantly pouring out into me and I'm pouring out into the world, like N.T. Wright says, setting everything right. So, I've written a book, yes, you're right. It's called Revelationship. So it's the word revelation and relationship together. So it's God revealing himself for the purpose of relationship. And it's transformative. So if somebody wants to get a hold of that, it's on my website, revelationship.net or Amazon. You have to look it up with my name, Cathy Culver Garland, in order to find it because Amazon thinks relationship is not a word. It isn't. It's a made up word, although the Urban Dictionary does have it, by the way, so I don't know what
Hmm.
that says. Anyway, so Revelationship is the first book, and then Known is my next devotional. It comes out December 1st. And Known is 32 names of God, a devotional for what that actually means for our identity in that name. So if anyone ever said, I'm not sure who this God is, or I'd like to get him to know him better, this has all my favorite names like El Roy, the God who sees me, or Jehovah Nissi, the Lord who declares over my circumstances and calls me into his family. So things like that. And then it even has mindfulness exercises that they can do as a family or um, just even by themselves, and journaling prompts and prayer prompts. And this is fun, adult coloring pages, because I'm one of those people who likes to color while I'm thinking deeply. And other people tell me they love coloring pages too. So it's all included in Known. It'll be available December 1st. So the Kindle version is out now.
Yeah, that all sounds great. Um, and all of those links will be posted in the description of this episode, wherever you find it. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah. To everybody else, I hope that this has inspired you. Um, Please just think, try to find where God's calling you this week. I hope that you have a wonderful week and God bless.